That change. What else?
I know, but. The girl that's Scarlett got.
Go away there.
Snow around Christmas. It's easy. But. There's literally villages. Return now. Golf course.
Crazy. 3, 4 years.
So I meant to like get up on one of those chairs and change the chair room, so.
When you do those reservations,
Oh, so you're
the
gonna-
last for spot.
So you're not gonna start with this late.
All right, 6:30, call the meeting to order. Can we have roll call? Have it. All right, we need approval of the October 12th, 2023 agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda of the regular meeting on October 12th.
Support.
2015.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. We have the minutes in the regular meeting held on September 14th, 2023.
I can make a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held on September 14th, 2023 as presented.
Support.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to the public comments. I'll open public comments. This is the time for anybody to address the commission on anything that's not already on tonight's agenda. If you would, please state your name and address. Nobody? All right, closing public comments. We'll move on to the public hearings that are scheduled for this evening. We have a request from Alfred Melendez of El Casamal to rezone parcel L 21 16-550-02400, located on Cliff Drive, north of Orchard Drive, from R2 Single Family Residential to B2 General Business. Jason?
Thank you. Good evening, planning commissioners. Again, I'm Jason Ball with Grove Professional Services Company. Tonight's public hearing is for a requested rezoning. Again, the parcel that you just mentioned. This is the location of the property. It is immediately behind, I'm sorry, you can't see the address there, but that's 1079, or I'm sorry, not 1079. Thank you. 1079 is the next one. And the applicant's intent is to rezone this parcel and then combine it with the parcel immediately to the west to develop a restaurant. And so as you know, when we consider, and this is a better view of the parcel because that aerial image is a little rough, it is this wooded area here is the parcel in question this evening. As you all know, when we consider rezoning, there are a couple of things that are primary to that consideration for you as a planning commission. One is consistency with the master plan. This is an excerpt of the city's future land use map. The black rectangle there indicates the approximate location of the parcel. It is planned for general commercial business in the master plan, which aligns with the rezoning request. This is the subject parcel here on our current zoning map. It is zoned R2 because the parcel was recently annexed into the city from Lapeer Township. When we annex a parcel, we bring it in with the zoning district that's most similar to what it was zoned in the township. In this case, that's R2. Prior to reviewing any rezoning, as you know, you're considering a recommendation tonight to the City Commission. There are two standards in the zoning ordinance for the Planning Commission to consider relative to rezonings. In order to recommend a rezoning, you have to find that one of the two standards is met. It's not, you don't have to find both, just one of the two. The first standard is that the requested amendment is consistent with the city's master plan. So in this case, we just looked at the future land use map. It's very clearly in line with the future land use map. It's also supported by goals in the master plan related to development of M24 as a commercial corridor. There are other standards for ensuring that M24 is developed as a high quality and attractive commercial corridor. Those are those standards that are part of the site plan review, right? Tonight, we're just considering the rezoning. If that first standard cannot be met, the second standard is whether the property cannot be reasonably used based on the current zoning district. In this case, the first standard clearly applies based on the master plan. So as your consultant, my recommendation is to consider just that first standard because there's clear compliance with the master plan. So our recommendation as staff is to the Planning Commission recommends approval of this rezoning to the City Commission because it is clearly compliant with the city's master plan, aligns with future land use plan as well as the plan's goals and objectives. Any questions or concerns for me that I can answer?
Hearing none, I'm going to open public hearing. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. I'll call on you, state your name and address. And I believe the applicant is also here this evening, if you'd like to speak to the commission.
Hello, my name is Casey Carpenter, Timbergate Construction, 350 North Court Street, Lapeer. And I have here Alfredo and Lalo, both owners of El Cosmel. They currently operate the nearest restaurant out of Cortland Center Mall, and are very excited to move this way and put a nice restaurant by the 69 corridor. So that's really all that that I have. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Karen Wick, 1080 Cliff Drive. One of the homeowners, along with the other homeowners. We have families, small kids, dogs, and it's looking like our little Cliff Drive is going to be turning into something a little bit dangerous for kids playing and whatnot, and with traffic. And so I'm just here because everyone living there is trying to stay there. but all this is creeping, whatever that master plan may be, are not taking into consideration of the families that live on Cliff Drive.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Close the public hearing. Commissioners, any comments, questions?
I mean, I understand that the neighbors along Cliff Drive are going to have concerns, but that's really going to be dealt with through the site plan process, not through this process. Jason explained it excellently. I thought it makes all the sense in the world to do the rezoning, and then obviously we'll have some questions and concerns about the site plan.
Thank you. Commissioner Kelly?
With that, I would make a recommendation, that's cool, to more comments. All right, I'll make a recommendation to recommend approval to the rezoning requested by Alfred Melendez of El Casamel LLC to rezone parcel L2021.16.550.024/00 from R2 to B2 because it requested consistent in the city's master plan, thereby meeting standard 1 in section 7.23.06.b. Sorry that I put those dots in between the dashes.
That's okay. Thank you. All right.
You realize that I'm speaking.
All right, do I have support?
I'll second.
All right, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, we will move on to the site plan review. We have a site plan received for the construction of a new security credit union facility at 1073 South Main Street. Jason?
Thank you. So this parcel, this proposed development is not immediately, skips a parcel, and that is just to the north of the rezoning we just considered. So the rezoning we just considered is here. This development is these 3 parcels combined. So this is actually the 3rd time that the site plan for these parcels and this use has been in front of the planning commission. The site plan has expired the previous 2 times. It's been resubmitted again for the 3rd time now. So the proposal is on these 3 parcels, as I just mentioned. This is Cliff Drive. This is M24. This is the existing conditions on the site today. The site's currently vacant. It does have a significant amount of vegetation. Some general topography that slopes back towards the rear of the site. This is the proposed site plan by the applicant. Main driveway, obviously, to M24, parking to the west of the building and the south, the drive-through lanes, then to the east, and with a driveway access also to Cliff Drive. This is the proposed landscaping plan for the site. As you can see, there's quite a bit of landscaping proposed by the applicant. This does comply with our ordinance completely, including required replacement for trees that are being removed. So you can see a significant amount of vegetation around the north, as well as this section around the proposed detention pond. And then on the south here to provide a buffer between the existing use here and that proposed driveway. I believe the lighting plan was in your packet as well. And the applicant's done a good job of ensuring that there's no light or spillage of light into the adjacent properties. This is a rendering of the proposed building. Again, looking at it from M24 from the west. And these are the proposed elevations. This is the drive-through. So the drive-through, again, would come back from the building to the east. So the drive-through wouldn't necessarily be heavily visible from M24. So the building view from M24 would be relatively limited, not the big long drive-through. As a note, metal roofs are required to be approved by the planning department to be sure that they're consistent with the architecture of the building. In this case, the proposed metal roof fits well from the planning department's perspective. The proposed architecture of the building is brick. It meets our building materials requirements quite well. And so the metal roof is appropriate. From our perspective as a planning commission, you can certainly disagree with me, but I don't see any reason to see issues with that proposed metal roof. A couple of minor outstanding zoning compliance issues with the site plan. The site plan identifies the adjacent parcels as being zoned M24 overlay district, but it doesn't include the underlying zoning district. A couple of those parcels are located in Lapeer Township, so you just need to have that corrected on the site plan so it's accurate. One big note on the site plan is that driveway permits are going to be required, both from MDOT as well as the Lapeer County Road Commission to Cliff Drive. Because Cliff Drive is dirt, I don't know what the Lapeer County Road Commission's appetite is going to be for that driveway. So there may be some consideration on that. The applicant can maybe speak to their plans or where they're at with that permitting process, both with MDOT and the Road Commission. We have a requirement in the ordinance that any drive-through is at least 60 feet from the right-of-way. This drive-through based on the site plan appears to meet that standard in spades. We just need that dimension noted on the plan. If it's there, we missed it. A couple other notes from other departments beyond planning. Assessing just notes they want to ensure that those 3 parcels are combined, because right now the building and driveway would split parcels, and so we want to ensure that's addressed before the plan moves on to building plan review. Tabbing fees would be required, and then in our engineering letter, there are a couple of minor issues related to clarifying the grading on the site, some minor landscaping spacing issues, and then some details on parking spaces. As you all know, our standards for site plan approval are listed on these 2 slides here. In this case, all the standards appear to be addressed. Again, this site plan is not significantly changed from the last 2 times it was presented, with some alterations to parking lot layout and landscaping. Overall, the site plan is very consistent with those that were submitted previously. So based on that information, as well as the site plan being consistent with what we previously approved, the staff is recommending approval of the plan with a couple of conditions. One, that we address those minor outstanding informational standards we mentioned, listing the zoning districts as well as the dimensions. The big one being sure that we're conditioning on permits, because depending on what we hear from MDOT, as we all know, the site layout could change. So we want to ensure that MDOT permit is addressed, as well as the road commission, and then addressing the outstanding comments from the assessing. Any questions for me on this?
Mr. Chairman, may I ask you? So Mr. Ball, I thought this site plan looked awfully clean for submission. Can you give me some background on the history of the previous 2 submissions and perhaps why they may have expired? Or perhaps the applicant can address
I think the applicant can speak to that. I don't know necessarily why that there hasn't been a building built on the site.
So combining the 3 parcels was one of my notes. The color of the roof, at least from looking at it, here, it looks off with white, a little jarring. What can you tell us about the ordinance requirements on that? I mean, it's not quite fluorescent, but it is bright.
Yeah. So our ordinance requirements on metal roofs are that they're approved by the planning. They used to be planning commission, that was changed to planning department. In this case, that's a trademark color, and it's utilized with the building. It's bright. A lot of metal roofs are bright just by the nature of them. If this was downtown, I'd have concerns with it. Given its context on the highway and close to the interstate, that sort of trademark color makes some sense. But certainly as a planning commission, you all can disagree with me on that or have other opinions.
I also had a question about the necessity of the back driveway. I understand that it's perhaps convenient, but Cliff Drive is a pretty, quiet road. We've had some of the neighbors in here already expressing concerns about the restaurant. Do you know of any reason why they would request that?
I do not. I think that's a great question for the applicant.
And then finally, the driveway width in the front, I see it notated as about 30 feet, 30.5 feet at the midline of the driveway. I don't see it marked at the mouth of the driveway, but is that sufficiently wide for kind of turning radii, American SUVs nowadays?
Yeah, so our minimum driveway width is 30 feet, I believe, and so that meets that standard. That being said, depending on speed of the roadway, that taper may change substantially depending on what's approved by the state.
Yeah, because it doesn't look like it's a deceleration lane, or I guess his applicant's expecting people to make left-hand, right-hand turns out of the northernmost exit lane. It doesn't look like it's wide enough for 3 lanes.
So 30 feet is typically adequate to do a left lane, 3 lanes, 10-foot lanes. small, but that works, that's our minimum. Again, in this case, because that roadway is not ours, I think our engineer's review on that wasn't as strict as it may have been if it was our roadway. But those are all good concerns that I think the applicant can address. Absolutely.
Before I open up to the applicant, commissioners, any more questions? The applicant, would you like to speak? We'll go over maybe some of the questions that we've already addressed, and then I have a couple more when we're done. Please state your name.
Good evening, my name is Rudy Father, I'm the site engineer for this project. Some of the questions that were brought up in regards to the permits for NDOT and the road commission, we're aware of that. That's our next move. If we we receive approval tonight, our next step would be is to go to NDOT as well as the road commission and obtain those approvals. The second access out to Cliff Drive, I'm trying to recall the real reason for it, and I'm not sure if the owner would know anything about it.
Katie Crane, it was just for another access point, because it's difficult to get around.
And it's also a second access for fire department to come in and out. So I think most customers that come in will go out, back out to M24. I don't think there's gonna be too many folks that are gonna be going out to Cliff Road. But yeah, we still have to get approval from the road commission. And that's our next step. What else was there? Yeah, think of anything else. One thing, the biggest change on this versus the site that was approved, I believe, in 2020 or 2021, is the building size. In 20, it was, I think, around 5,000 square foot. Now it's down to 3,500. So that's the biggest change. Everything else pretty much stayed the same. Parking, we're meeting all the zoning regulations in regards to parking, landscape requirements, and setback regulations. So I'm here to answer any other questions you have for the site.
Sir, so I'm not sure if you were the project manager previously, but I'd like to hear something about the history of submission, why the previous two were not finalized.
The only one that I was aware of is the one back in 21. And I think the reason that one was held up was because of COVID. And I think that was the reason that that project came to a halt. So we're picking it up now again. Why the previous or the one prior to that was stopped, I'm not sure.
What about the addressing the driveway on 24? So is that going to be right-hand turns only, or is that going to be? Are you putting up that you can go out and turn left there as well?
That was planned to make left turn as well, I believe. Yes.
Okay.
Still has to be approved by MDOT. The previous engineer that was working on this supposedly got some pre-approval from MDOT for the layout that you currently see there, but we still have to go back and get the approval.
Now, is this an additional building to the other ones in town, or is this going to take place at one of the?
It can take place in one of them.
Thank you. And then I guess about the roof, I think that was a concern when it first popped up there. It does seem like a lot of bright blue. Is that, do you have, I mean, is that, the other stores don't have that, correct?
Yes, all of our other locations do. Our newer locations, that is the one that we have. Bedford, Grand Blanc, Saginaw, Colosso, all of our newer ones.
This is a question. Does anyone else have any questions for that?
I have one. You know, the access on the Cliff Road, the drive. There are lots of times when M24 is backed up, either because of the train or light situations, and I could see, because I myself use Toro Road a lot to get around town to avoid some of those why wouldn't they consider a road, like using Turl Road, to handle that traffic versus a drive?
Approval doesn't connect to it,
It
right?
doesn't,
Oh, sorry,
we're not on the corner.
you're not on the corner.
We're not, yeah.
Okay.
So that is a concern I have. So if we're gonna there are, let's say, this restaurant and this coming in there, I mean, I definitely think the traffic, is that something that is a dirt road, is that something that we may need to consider to have that road paved to take on more of the, traffic there?
So I can offer the preliminary plans submitted by the applicant for rezoning do not anticipate any access to that.
But-
Access would just be on the
Or, I don't know.
correct.
My suspicion is that drive-through banking customers are just gonna go right back up to 24.
Yeah, I think they just naturally flow, because of that.
Yeah, but I agree, the restaurant likely would have more people take the Cliff Drive, but they are not gonna have access. But I will be concerned about blocking headlights into any residential houses that are back there.
So I mean, there is a significant amount of, that was one of our initial comments on the site plan, and there is, as you can see, a significant amount of vegetation planned here to help address that concern relative to this residence. But I would add that I think your assessment as a planning commission is spot on. I don't know if the applicant's demonstrated a clear need for that drive. Additionally, it creates a lot of extra impervious surface, with additional potential issues for runoff. Certainly, the applicant's got a very large stormwater retention detention basin here. But I don't know that that drive is, from my perspective, I don't see that it necessarily is required. Unless there's some reason from a safety perspective, but we have lots of, buildings on 24 with single access to 24.
Commissioner Johnson?
Looking at the plans for El Cozumel, unless it's been changed, they gotta drive going off the cliff.
On that one,
It says V lot, requested zoning change, and you got an arrow pointing to the lot. And there is clearly a drive, exit going up the back.
I guess the preliminary plan that they brought us again last week was no longer connecting to Cliff. They had moved that parking lot significantly to the west.
Now, one thing I wanted to bring up, I don't know if everyone remembers, we did address, because we had a lot of concern with the residents on Cliff Drive. We brought up that we were going to, made a recommendation to change the zoning to a lesser commercial industrial use on the front, which these would still fall into that category of being okay uses, but that we were thinking we didn't want to do split zoning, but we did try to come up with a compromise to have that all rezoned a lesser use. I still think these two particular projects would still fall into that, correct, Jason? The rezoning that we had first proposed, but I think it went to the city commission level and it just was dropped from there. But we definitely had some concerns with the neighbors being in the back, but I feel at this point, if we're not having drives out to Cliff, and the primary buildings are on 24, it's kind of negate that a little bit.
I could go either way with it. I mean, I can understand their desire for it. It's a big expense. They're not gonna do it willy-nilly. And probably 1% of the people might exit out that way.
Hey, you've got a nice 24, nice parking lot, and then you're gonna take your clean car out on a dirt road 6 months out of the year. I would think not.
I think the people,
Sorry.
yeah, I think the people using that rear driveway will be their customers who live on Cliff Drive.
Well, I think to the other point of, as people are in a location, right, get to learn traffic patterns or whatever, if you have a hard time making a left or getting out, that may be an option. I guess to the planning commission's point, and from my perspective, certainly reviewing locations of driveways is very much within your purview. And deciding whether or not they're necessary, we always want fewer drives when we can, because fewer drives is more safe than more drives in general. So if there are concerns relative to neighbors and impacts of that drive, and if there's not some really good reason why it has to be there from a safety perspective or otherwise, as a planning commission, you're certainly within your purview to request that it be removed.
But I do have concerns, so pulling out of there, going left, I mean, there, what the nice part is that's close to the light there, so traffic is going to be slowing down at times. But don't you feel if going left on there is probably gonna be an issue or no? Does anyone else have?
Yeah,
So this
It
Turl,
could be,
That was the reason for it.
yes.
It could be an issue with any of the driveways along M24, and if it's the wrong time of day, then you go right. Go on somewhere. I mean, obviously, people are gonna try, I suppose, but there is that middle line,
Yeah.
middle lane,
There are
where
several
they can
drives
get
along
out.
there that have the
It's
same
just like
situation.
EGNX, what's the difference?
well, yeah, I'm seeing now that this goes down to Turl. Cliff Drive does go down to Turl, which has a, so,
No, there's no way. Oh, Turl,
Yeah,
well,
there's
Turl,
right.
Turl 24, you mean, correct, yeah,
so if somebody could exit out
the
on
back.
Cliff Drive, go the back way, and they, yeah.
That's what I see happening. I see eventually if it gets too busy, that Cliff Drive will be accessed more because people going left are gonna access Cliff going left, which would make sense, and then point out that going right would probably be,
But the fact that it's a dirt road, I think will,
so discouraging.
Yeah.
But, and again, there will have to be approval from the county road commission in putting a commercial drive onto a dirt road. I don't know what county road commission standards are for that, but lots of times, I don't know if you can speak to that theory, but lots of times it is a consideration.
Right. Certainly, they're gonna be taking a hard look at it, and so we'll have to still go through the approval process and see if they will allow us to do that.
if it's such a low percentage, why would you need it? I mean, if you're saying you think only 1% are gonna use it, why do you need it?
so
If 99% of traffic is gonna go,
I said 1%, not yet.
Yeah, I don't know what the percentage would be, but
has anybody done any kind of a traffic study? Traffic pattern study for the end of town these days?
Not that I'm aware of, I believe there were some studies that were done for the proposed Popeyes in that area, but wouldn't necessarily take this into account. Very
That was
different,
on the
very
other
different,
side of the road.
Lanes,
very different use.
lanes, they're not coming out on 24, but they.
Correct.
But they. All right, well, any more questions or concerns? How do we feel about the metal roof? I think the metal roof seems to be, in my opinion, appropriate there. I am maybe the color maybe, but did you pull it up? What it looks
I
like?
did, I mean, it's intense, but you know, I agree with Jason, it's on DM 24, it's
So we'll take
it's
that.
a pretty commercial corridor, if it was downtown, I'd be saying no.
It looks more intense on that picture.
But that's what I honestly
But when you
say,
think, when you're out there and you're looking at the sky, it's not gonna look
And it'll
like
get
that.
sun bleached a little
I
bit,
actually like that.
I think they look fine on the building as well.
yeah,
if you
I
would wanna pull up the one on in Grand Blanc off of Holly Road, that gives you more of the color of that roof. It's a light, it seems like it's a little lighter than what's
That's the
actually
color
shown
of the top of
on
that
picture.
cup right there.
yes, it's not that.
I've seen all your buildings.
Yeah, it's not
They're
quite that
nothing
bright.
like that. right there.
That
They're,
was it.
they're definitely lighter.
Yeah, I think it looks worse in this picture probably than,
That's safety blue there.
We do have the finishes, we don't have the rough color, but we do have some of the brick and kind of finishes. Spencer's will show that.
Yeah, I'm good on that.
They don't have a problem. And we approve trademark colors at the lowest car wash, which would be across the street.
Yeah,
Yeah, so this one here in Grand Blanc is substantially less bright,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
so it might just be how it's being projected onto the screen.
sorry.
While he pulls that up, does anyone else have any questions, concerns, anything for the applicants? I think we're.
Does that work? Everybody see that okay?
Yeah, big difference, really.
I'm like you, I remember we had a lot of discussion when we talked about the rezoning of that area, the concerns for Cliff Drive. And that businesses were gonna, and once one gets it, more are gonna do it, and
I think it was the high intensity, what type of use, and so I think even the rezoning that we proposed to be a less of a use, I believe these would still fall into that category, so, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I would think too
I
that,
think these were,
since the master plan calls for everything to be commercial there, eventually Cliff Drive is gonna be asphalt or going to get a hard surface.
We also have to think that banks aren't gonna be open up past 4 o'clock, you know. Hopefully you guys for 5:30, but,
Days.
Six, 2 nights and 5 days.
so not bank hours.
Yeah.
But like a restaurant's gonna be open for dinner. So I think this is the lesser of the two. I think that we're gonna have a lot more concerns about the restaurant.
All right, so any more, I think we're, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so, sounds like everyone's okay with Marble Brook. Anyone, no other discussion, anyone want to make a motion?
I will make a motion.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the site plan requested by Security Federal Credit Union to construct a 3,428 square foot credit union with a drive-through at 1073 South Main Street because it meets all standards in section 7-18.04. Conditioned upon the applicant correcting zoning of adjacent parcels and indicating the distance from the drive-through to the right-of-way on the site plan. The applicant receiving all necessary permits from MDOT, the Lapeer County Road Commission, and other applicable agencies, and the applicant addressing outstanding issues identified by the assessing department and the city engineer.
Support.
All right, any more discussion?
Mr. Ball, the applicant addressing outstanding issues identified by the assessing department, does that include the combination of the 3 parcels?
It does, that was the issue identified by assessment.
Thank you.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Oh, you're opposed. Thank you. All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to other business. Is it as recorded?
Yes.
Correspondence, development activities report, anything to address there, or is that as presented?
As presented.
Training report, any updates other than what's in the packet?
I do have revised training reports for anybody that requested changes. I can show them to you to be sure we've got it correct. Otherwise, we should be up to date.
Anyone? Good, great, thank you. We'll move on to commissioner comments. Commissioner Johnson.
Wow. Wait a minute. It's 7:05. Yeah, I was not here on the last meeting, as you know. I read in the paper, the EV charging stations. We settled on allowing businesses to, we're not forcing them to put in EV stations, only conduits. Is that correct? Is that what we decided? Is that?
Jason can speak a little more on that, but yes, that it was, there was 2 options to have them ready and then accessible, or there's 2 different variations of how they could be set up, and that is what we went with.
So just conduits?
That's correct.
Correct, yeah.
We aren't requiring the installation of the actual charging station, but the conduit so it could be installed in the future.
But isn't it also on these properties that are gonna be so big? as
Yeah,
well?
50 parking spaces or more.
So that's it, yeah.
Commissioner Markford?
I have no further questions, thank you.
Commissioner Holman?
Only that I spoke with the planning consultants and I've asked that we make all of the planning commission packet information publicly available on the public website so that any member of the public can see it anytime they like. I think he's in agreement with that. So that similar to the city commission, we will have the public better informed in the future about what we're talking about.
Thank you. Commissioner Shank? No. Commissioner Katz? No. Commissioner Kelly?
I'm excited to see 24 starting to get some life.
Good point.
And that's all.
Thank you. All right, well, good meeting tonight. I have nothing else to add, so with that, meeting is adjourned.
Make a motion for a meeting.
Okay.
At 7:30.
Actually, Mr. Hogan,
You want to quick?
You know,
I'm gonna run with that. We should be online now. Have one SPD.
I.
Yeah,
No,
I
but
think
they come in,
you
open
said
them up.
PTA as well, too, so.
I was just up there. Thank you.
Cold.
The first day was super warm.
Thanks, everyone.
I got
Have a good evening.
It's less distracting. But they already have a building in town. So here we go, we're gonna have a, now we're gonna go on that access road over there, customer.
Is it before or after? Is it after